Hi, I'm Justin Pritchard with another used ride buyer's guide, and today I want to take a look at some of the most popular performance models from the used car marketplace, all in one video. Now, the vehicles we're going to look at today are anything from Chrysler that is an SRT8, so Magnum, 300, Charger, or Challenger, or the Jeep Grand Cherokee. Now, these are all sort of different vehicles, but from a mechanical standpoint and a common problem standpoint, they're all sort of similar too. And so that means from a reliability and maintenance standpoint then that a lot of the information I'm going to give you in a moment can be cross-applied to all of those vehicles and across even different generations of those vehicles too. So keep on watching for the tips, and hopefully one or more of them will help you find a first-class copy of a second-hand SRT8. So the first tip is that you're best to kind of work backwards from an expectation standpoint when you're approaching a used SRT8. You're best to assume that it needs new tires, new brake pads and rotors, a new clutch if it's got the manual transmission like in the Challenger, and also assume that it's overdue for all of its tune-up work and fluid changes as well until you or a mechanic prove otherwise. And you can prove otherwise yourself, of course, by inspecting service records or having a mechanic check the vehicle out for you. Now, most sellers are not trying to pass off a repair or maintenance bill onto you, but some are, and so it does pay to keep that in mind. And on the topic of fluids, remember that the less popular fluids like transmission fluid, brake fluid, differential fluid all require periodic attention as well. And again, if you can't prove that they're fresh, have them changed out. So next up, note that any funny business from the automatic transmission may be the result of corrupted programming or an issue with the transmission's computer itself or with a sensor. Any slippage, hard shifting, or hesitation should be taken as cause for further investigation, and usually a transmission software reflash or update is the fix, but have a dealer technician confirm that that's the case if you have any concerns, because transmission damage in some cases can have similar symptoms that are a lot pricier to fix. Any funny business from the engine, like a fluctuating idle or sporadic power delivery, is likely to be sensor related in nature. Many an SRT8 owner has had luck fixing issues like these with things like maybe a new throttle position sensor. But keep in mind that having the ECU scanned by a diagnostic tool is a great idea, because it can reveal all sorts of potentially hidden problems that may or may not cause the check engine light to illuminate. Next up, have a mechanic give the drive shaft and all associated components a good check over as well, because some owners have reported issues with bad drive shafts. Next, if you're the average shopper, you want to typically avoid a used SRT8 that's been modified, but keep in mind that that can be fairly tricky because a lot of owners have modified these vehicles in one way or another. Now, the big concern here is whether any of the mods have voided any remaining warranty in any way. Poorly installed modifications and poor quality parts can cause all kinds of issues and headaches, especially if they include non-factory engine and transmission management software. So basically, unless you're up on the world of SRT8 customization, you're typically going to be best to stick to stock. And it's all about peace of mind, right? Remember that thousands of people drive modified SRT8s with no problem every single day, and your typical sort of smaller mods like intake and exhaust systems are typically going to be no problem at all. But if you're the average shopper, at the very minimum, do your homework or avoid a model with anything more than just minor modifications for maximum peace of mind. Next up, if you're looking at a Grand Cherokee SRT8, which is the only all-wheel drive model here, be sure to have the transfer case inspected for signs of oil leakage, possibly from a bad seal, which you will want to address. And on the topic of leaks, note that some owners have reported these caused by a loose oil filter or a bad oil filter gasket or a leaky valve cover gasket, but all of these should be fairly easy for your mechanic to spot on a pre-purchase inspection. And if you're after a Challenger SRT8, you're going to want to check for saggy ceiling liners and cracked rocker panel moldings, as well as confirming that the rubber weather seals around the doors are intact and in good shape too. Now, as a general rule, you want to make sure those weather seals are plump and intact, and that you can kind of push on them and they spring back. They should not be dried, cracked, or deteriorating, otherwise you'll wind up with water leaks sooner than later. Other checks should include things like the Uconnect system if it's equipped, setting a navigation destination, placing a call via the Bluetooth system, cycling through various media sources, and the like. You're going to want to check that the heated and chilled seats work properly on both settings, that the remote trunk release is functioning properly, and that the backup camera is working consistently too. Oh, and if the model you're considering has the xenon headlights, now's the time to make sure that neither of them is burnt out, because those can be fairly pricey to replace. Now that's just about it. Largely these things look to be very solid from a reliability standpoint, provided that you don't modify them, beat them up, and that they're well taken care of. But I am going to finish on something important. Be absolutely certain to get a pre-purchase inspection at a dealer or the mechanic of your choosing. Now, you might be able to get the seller to meet you at the shop, or maybe to let you drive the vehicle there. That inspection takes about an hour. It might cost you about $125 up to maybe $200 or so, depending. And nobody does this because it costs a bit of money and it means that you have to go to a place. But the thing is that it could save you thousands if there's some problem waiting to surface that you otherwise wouldn't have known about. I don't recommend anyone buy a used car without this type of inspection, and especially not a performance model like one of these. Anyhow, thanks for watching. I hope these tips have helped you out, and happy shopping.